I've just finished watching the game between England and Wales at Twickenham, and all I can say is what an absolute shocker of a game. More to come in this video about that. Welcome to Inside Rugby, everyone. My name's Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan who's living in Cancun in Mexico, trying to spread the love of the game of rugby across the world. And this is my YouTube channel. Thanks very much for joining me. Now, today we had the England-Wales warm-up game played at Twickenham. Last week, of course, Wales played England at the Principality Stadium, and they ended up winning that game by 20 points to 9. So there was a lot of energy around this second game today to see whether this improved England squad, probably a tougher England squad, was going to do the job against Wales, or were Wales, who were in themselves a hugely changed team, going to be able to take it up to England. Now, in the first few minutes of play in this game, England came out playing okay. Farrell got 3 kicks away and did strategically quite well and put England on the front foot, I thought. And I thought that England were going to be able to use this early domination, I'm only talking about the first few minutes here, to be able to put some pressure on Wales and to score some points. I had warned before this game started in my previous video about the preview for this game. I was worried about the scrums of this game. I thought that the scrums were going to be a mess from both sides, and that we were going to see a lot of discrepancies, a lot of disciplinary issues, and therefore a lot of penalties. And boy, did we see that in this game. So in that first 10 minutes of the game, from England's point of view, we saw a rather composed England. They held on to the ball more than Wales got. In fact, England had most of the possession in that first 10 minutes. And Daly made a good break through the middle, through the Welsh defence, and headed towards the Welsh goal line, being stopped just short of the Welsh goal line. In fact, in that first 10 minutes, England got 71% of the possession of the ball in the game. So it was really no surprise when they went ahead 3-0 with a penalty to Owen Farrell. But boy, then the game just went into complete disarray, and I think for the next 50 or 60 minutes, I haven't seen probably a poorer game of rugby by both sides than I witnessed in this game. And I've made a whole list of notes, as I do on every game, and most of the notes are talking about handling errors, are talking about set piece errors, lineouts going astray, scrums that are absolutely disastrous. And really that first 40 minutes was just a shocking display of rugby. You know, these two teams, by now they should be showing their best rugby heading into the Rugby World Cup, and they should have sorted out all the disciplinary issues whereby they're not giving away too many penalties. Their scrums and their lineouts calls should be solid by now. We saw this from the Southern Hemisphere teams in their warm-up games in the Rugby Championship this year, and we saw open, flowing, running rugby with a lot of impulse and a lot of spontaneity. What we saw in the first 40 minutes of this game between England and Wales was boring, kicking, mistake-ridden rugby. And from a Kiwi who's going to try and give a neutral perspective on this, it was just really, really terrible to watch. It was a terrible game of rugby. It was stop-start. The referee couldn't really do much, and then he started giving out cards, and as soon as that started happening, we knew exactly where this game was going to go to. So not only were things going wrong for both teams in the first half of this game, but they also started going wrong for certain players. And Tane Plumtree had a game that he probably want to forget for Wales, and a lot of those in the Welsh camp will be asking for him to be not selected to go to the Rugby World Cup when Warren Gatland announces his team. He had a bit of a shocker game, I must say, missing tackles and also doing silly things under high kicks that weren't getting possession for Wales. So Plumtree, not a good game today, and ironically he ended up going off injured. But really in that first half, it was all about England stop starting, not getting any momentum into the game. Every time they tried to do something with the ball, they would drop the ball, they would do silly errors. I was quite surprised to see Owen Farrell actually smiling when he made a mistake, which he did several of before his incident occurred later on in the game. But it just seems to me from England and Wales in this game, that they were just falling over each other and falling over themselves. It was just a terrible display of rugby. And for the 70,000 fans that had packed into Twickenham to watch this game today, even though it wasn't part of a competition, it was a warm-up game, they would have been hugely disappointed and probably wanting to be asking for their money back after that first 40 minutes. Spoiled by the rugby we've seen so far in this campaign in the Southern Hemisphere, and these two sides should be two teams that are going to do well at the Rugby World Cup, but from what we saw in that first 40 minutes, it didn't seem as though these teams are going to have trouble getting out of the pool group in the World Cup. As far as from a Wales point of view, I don't know whether the moment got to Darby Lake, but his throwing into the line out was appalling. The Welsh scrum was terrible. In fact, we only had 2 scrums in the game, in the entire game, that went without referee intervention. That's how bad this game was from a scrummaging point of view. And every time Wales set a scrum, they infringed in the scrum and had a disciplinary issue. Their lineouts were terrible. I don't know whether the lineout thrower wasn't listening to the calls or knew what the calls were, but Wales lost 5 lineouts in that first half. And heading into a Rugby World Cup, you cannot afford to play with that lowest percentage. So I'm sure Warren Gatland would have been pulling his hair out. Not that he's got a lot of it, but he would have been pulling his hair out in that first half, because Wales were just creating their own downfall, really. They were in the game without the mistakes. But so the game was really just bumbling along in that first 40 minutes, and it kind of came to a conclusion in the last few minutes that Arundel for England got a yellow card for tackling someone without the ball, which probably summed up what went on in that first 40 minutes. And that gave Wales an opportunity, I guess, in the last few minutes of the first half. Things probably couldn't get any worse for England. Van Portelay went off injured, and it looks like he's done some damage to his ankle. I'm not too sure what the prognosis of his injury is there, but that wasn't good news for England either. Wales, just in the last couple of minutes, made a big rush down into the English 22, and it looked like they were going to put finally some pressure on the English defence in front of their goal line. But as was the theme of the game up until that stage, Wales made a mistake and England turned over the ball and won that just before half time. So, and what made me really concerned was that, you know, England made all these changes and so supposedly put in their number 1 team, and over 1,000 caps amongst this team that went and played at Twickenham today, and you never saw it. It was just not there until the last minutes of the game. So that first 40 minutes, I don't know what the coaches would have said to their teams in the first half at the changeover, because it was just absolutely terrible rugby. So 6-0 to England at half time, and then in the second half, straight underway, yellow card to Wales. So the yellow cards kept rolling, and this also had an impact on the game, not in a positive sense, that's for sure. And it's something that concerns me as we head towards the World Cup, because we saw it again in this game. We saw lots of cards being handed out, we saw a lot of disciplinary issues, and we saw a lot of injuries. And I can't help but think that this is going to be a major theme throughout the World Cup this year. Injuries at critical times to critical players, as well as disciplinary issues, and the refs having to be forcing the rules. And this is going to change the course of games, or it's going to make games look really, really bad, like this game was unfolding. So Rafael was sent off for Wales within the first couple of minutes of the second half, and it started a trend that would continue, unfortunately, throughout the second half. So as I said, Plumtree was replaced. I think the final straw was he dropped a kick-off restart from England when Wales were down 9 points to 3. And he seemed to get injured, which was quite ironic, so he was taking off and Basham came on, and I must say I was pretty impressed with Basham. Actually got straight into the action, used his energy, started looking for the ball, and made a couple of good breaks as well. So Billy Vunipola was on for England in this game at the start, and one of the players that I mentioned in my preview video that I was looking forward to watching. He had a couple of good hit-ups, but wasn't really looking too dangerous around the sides and the edges of the mauls. Was doing his job in the scrums, but again, because the game was so disjointed and there were so many infringements going on, someone like Vunipola didn't really get to do what he can do in this particular game. Stewart did a couple of good things, took a couple of good high balls, but again, he was one of those players that whilst he did a couple of good things, he also did a couple of things that let down his overall performance. Stewart let himself down by getting a yellow card, and a penalty try went to Wales, so it brought Wales right back into this game, and it was game on at 10 points to 9. And it seems as though if it wasn't going to be anything else like brilliant play that would open up this game, the referee was going to do it by sending people off. At the 60-minute mark, and the game turned around on its head for all sorts of different reasons. It started when Genge got a yellow card, and England were down to 14 men at that stage. And then it seems as though both teams and the referee got together and decided to turn this game into an absolute shambles as far as discipline goes. And then the mayhem started. So we saw Owen Farrell given a yellow card as well. So this meant that England were down to 12 men at this stage. And Farrell's tackle was horrendous. He went in with his shoulder, took his arms completely away from the tackle, went in with his shoulder directly into the head of his opponent, and without question it should have been a red card, I think, straight away without any decision from the referee. But he sent him off and asked the bunker to do a review, and of course the bunker came back within the 8 minutes of allotted time that they have to confirm that Farrell was red carded from this game. So Wales were ahead by 10 points to 9, England down to 12 players, and of course Wales had to find an opportunity to score a try, and they did. Their halfback Thomas Williams got over for a try, taking the lead out to 17-9. And this is when Wales should have put their pedal to the metal and put England away in this game, because they really had the opportunity with Farrell out of the game, and of course with the other two England players off the field for a set period of time. But it wasn't going to be the case, and Wales couldn't find the momentum that they needed to really put England away in this game. So maybe there's something in this. When Farrell got sent off, England started to play, and they were a much better team. So either it galvanised them a bit, or they thought they'd better pull their finger out. I think it was probably the latter. So after a good bit of pressure, England pushed down towards the Welsh goal line, and they ended up scoring a try through Ito. And it really got them back into the game, and I think it gave them a little bit of wind in there. So with that try from Ito and the conversion, England were back to 17 points to 16. We had a game on for the last 10 minutes, and boy did we need to see something, because the rest of the game was an absolute shocker. And it continued that way really. And if you're going to put your hands up and say, well, England were fantastic in coming back into this game when they were man down and all the rest of it, well, quite frankly, they shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place. Their discipline was terrible. Their general play across the park was terrible for most of the day. Their kicking was terrible. Their injection of pace into the back line was snuffled out all the time by Wales. They didn't look creative at all. They looked despondent. They looked like clueless. And up against the best team in the world, the best teams in the world, which Wales is obviously not one of them at the moment, this England team would have got slaughtered today by either South Africa, the All Blacks. Even Australia would have given them a run for their money today, I would have thought. But it wasn't until that last 10 minutes that we saw England getting into the heads of the Welsh, I think, and that's really what turned the game around for them. And they were able to get home by 19 points to 17. It was a shocking game, and you know, it's a very hard thing to do, to make a review on a game like this, because there were so many players who probably outplayed themselves. And maybe that was some of the problem with this game, that too many players were either taking it too safe to try and cement themselves into a World Cup spot, or they were trying too hard and making lots of mistakes. And Plumtree from Wales was one of those players. The disciplinary panel go hard on Farrell for this, because he's been known to do these sorts of things in previous games and has got away with them. So I think they need to go down pretty hard on him, and I think this is really going to affect England in a positive way, because I think they're better without Farrell in this team, to be honest. A player that probably needs to sit on the sidelines for a little while. Let me know what you think about that. I know that Farrell has a lot of detractors out there, but he also has a lot of fans, so let me know what you think first of all about Farrell's incident, and then secondly, what do you think about the English team without Farrell in it for the World Cup, potentially in the... Williams at fullback for Wales was another of those players that had a mixed game today. He was good under a couple of the high balls, he dropped a few others, he made some breaks into some open spaces, but he also turned over the ball and gave the ball to England at critical stages. I think Wales has to go away and do some major work on their scrums and lineouts. Their set pieces today were appalling. and we didn't see that resurgence in Wales that we saw in the last 10-15 minutes of the game last week at the Principality Stadium. So that'll be something else that really worries Warren Gatland, although most people are saying this was a Wales B team today that came in and play. Doi Lake was unfortunate. He didn't have a good game either, captaining and also getting injured. So we'll have to see what's happening with him. But Jack Morgan, I think, did a much better job last weekend, wasn't included in the squad today to play against England. So maybe through this loss, Warren Gatland did get some of the answers he was looking for from this particular game, even though Wales ended up losing. After all, it's one apiece between England and Wales in this little series, in the Summer Series. And I think probably Gatland saw some of the pressures on his players that he wanted to see in an environment like this to be able to make his call on the World Cup team. Let me know what you think about that. Did he see enough from those players that were on the peripheral to make a decision for Gatland to go, yes, they're in, or no, they're out? I think he probably did in this game, because it was such a shocker on so many different levels. England, I think, have to go away to the drawing board, because if they bring that level of play to the Rugby World Cup, they're not going to get out of the pool stage. And they've been there before and done that, haven't they? So we'll have to wait and see. I think Steve Borthwick's got a lot of work to do. A lot of chatter about the culture within the English team and all the rest of it. Maybe it's time to put all that stuff aside and get down to basics, getting back to playing rugby, getting back to letting these players have fun. And it looks like when you look at these players, a lot of them don't look like they're enjoying their rugby. They're under stress, they're under pressure all the time. And it's all about the way that they think they have to perform. Whereas those teams that are playing great rugby, the All Blacks and the French at the moment, and Scotland, they're playing with freedom, they're playing with joy, and they're bringing something to their game that makes it look easier than it actually is, because they actually enjoy doing it. And I think that's something that's been lacking from the English players for a long time now, both under Eddie Jones and also under Steve Borthwick now. So let me know what you think about that. Do you think the English players look restricted? Do you think they look tight and stressed? Is there too much pressure on them to perform? Really interested to know your views on this one. Okay, so that's my wrap on this game. I know it's been a little bit negative, but I'm going to call it how it is, folks. I'm not going to sit here and marshmallow anything. And when we've seen the level of rugby we have so far across the world in the last couple of months, watching a game like this kind of brings everything down a level. So I just want to put it out there that that's how I saw this particular game. None of those teams should be proud about what they're bringing today to that game, and if they play like that in the Rugby World Cup, either one of them, Wales or England, they're going to be in trouble, and they're not going to make it through. So let me know what you think, because I'm interested, of course. Drop me your comments, hit the like button if you like this video, and give us a sub, because that's how I keep this channel going. And I look forward to bringing you another video soon right here on Inside Rugby. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and enjoy your rugby, everyone. Bye for now.